Hello and welcome to today's video, and within this one we'll be taking a look at how you can be improving your ancient set armor and some of the misconceptions that some people might be having. Now whether you're close to Throne 11 or have already been building sets for a long time, there might be some things that you didn't know on how you can be improving your team even further, even after you've already been building your sets. So the first thing we'll be covering is how you can improve your set items that you already have and what it can mean for you in the future. Firstly, as many people may know, when you build an ancient set item, it can be anywhere between these two ranges, and most people only focus on health, but in some cases it can also affect the item's description as well. And I'm not just talking about the basic improvement from going into an ancient set, but in some cases your item's description will also come with a range as well, and this will also depend on how well that item was made. I'll show you two items on screen for an example, and the first one will be this one here, being the Turtle's Rage gear, and that number in the description on the right hand side will always be locked to 45% no matter how well the item is made. But the second item in the God of Slyness gear will have a big range on how well it was made, and the minimal is nearly 50% worse than its maximum potential. And this really goes to show you on the right gear that getting the items nearer to its highest stats will be crucial to having long time success. So whether you're looking at starting your sets or have already built your 8-man team, here's how you can improve your stats even further to what you've built them at right now, which some of you might already know, and the misconception will be spoken about later. So the example I'll be using today will be my Legionnaire's armor, as I have plenty of essences for them, and I will be reforging into the God of Slyness armor to continue with the example before. Now after the reforge, the stats have turned out fairly weak, and this might be the same case for some people. But the thing that people don't realise, this will actually be the worst main armour I will ever make for the Legionnaire, excluding non-event items. And this is because Hustle Castle have some sort of tracking or logging system that will remember what stats you have currently even after you break them down. So when it comes to remaking or just building a brand new item, it would always come out of better stats overall, again as long as we're comparing event items to event items. And with that in mind, you basically have two options to choose from. You can either choose the slowest route, which is going to be better for people starting out with the sets, and this will mean every time you want to improve your fighter's items, you'll have to make a brand new one completely, and then the one that turns out better can be used on them, and the weaker one can be moved to someone else that you might be using into your djembes or expeditions. But the quickest way, which is a way I'd recommend only once you have a 6-piece set, and that'd be to break down the item to gain 1, 2 or 3 essences back, depending on the original cost of the item in the first place. And in this example, you would get 3 essences back, saving you a total of 600k mithril in the process. Then after breaking down the item, you can rebuild that same item again and check out the increase in stats, which I'll give you an example in just a sec. But I did want to point out that sometimes the item increase isn't always that noticeable, so taking a screenshot beforehand would always be recommended. So yes, let's see what happens after I break down and rebuild the item, and yes, I will be using diamonds for the purpose of this video, but that's just to speed up the process. Now what I'll do is speed through the process, but if you want to see everything step by step properly, then you can always mute the video and slow down the speed settings on the cog in the bottom right, and then playback speed to around 0.25. So with that all being done and basically hard to read, what I'll do now is show you on screen of all the items that have been made compared to the original and then talk briefly about them. So the original item had 117,000 health with 65,000 health restored when the allied minion is summoned, and after the first upgrade the item now has 128,000 health and can be healed for 70,000 health. And finally on the last upgrade the item now has a big uplift, landing on 160,000 health and being healed for 86,000. As you can see, it will take many upgrades to get the much higher stats, but if you've already built fairly good items, then it wouldn't take you as long to reach the highest potential. And comparing between the lowest and highest armor we've shown here today, the item has gained an additional 36% more health, and the ability of healing has gone up by 32% as well. So always try to work on your strongest items first when it comes to winning your battles, and then work on your lowest stats next to them to bring them up to par with all the others. We're not done just yet, please give this video a like if you did enjoy this part of the video or have at least learned something new today. And make sure to show your friends about this video if they have or will plan to be making sets very soon. From here we can now talk about the misconception that some people have with the set workshop. Some people believe that reforging is always improving your fighter's stats, but that's not always the case. Within this video, I've been driving home about comparing event items to event items, and that's because event items will always have more health and in general better stats than non-event items. Let me set up a perfect example, but in the opposite fashion. If I compare the newest upgraded Legionnaire armor and try and reforge it with a normal event item, the stats come out pretty similar, and this will vary slightly depending on what stats are being swapped over. But if we reforge it into a normal normal non-event item, the stats are not only worse, they're actually worse than my original item that I showed at the beginning of the video before I did any upgrades. And that's because I'm moving from an event item to a non-event item, not because the reforge will improve your stats guaranteed. So if anyone recommends someone in your clan to reforge their item for better stats, you can now say it's only worth doing if you want a certain ability on a particular fighter, or reforging from a non-event item to a normal event item. I'm sorry I've been using that word a lot, but that is the best way of explaining it, and that should be the end of it. And the last thing I wanted to mention, for people that have nearly maxed out their stats, it will always be ideal to break down the item again and rebuild it until the last gem slot on the very right is what you want it to be. I'll bring up the 3 items again as an example, but every time you rebuild your item it will change the last gem slot on the very right hand side, and it will give you a gem slot depending on what type of item it is, so just bear this in mind of what you're trying to get. Anyways, thank you for watching this whole video if you made it this far, and here are 2 more videos I think you'll like if you enjoyed this one, and here is a playlist of all my unique videos so far to do with Hustle Castle.